So before you mentioned that you dabbled in a bunch of fields of epidemiology, so could you touch a bit more on sort of the variety and amount of fields that are included in sort of the general umbrella of epidemiology? And like how do they differ in terms of the skills that are required and the interests?
Well, that's a good question. That is a really good question. So in thinking about the different fields, that the different kind of areas that are involved in the field of epidemiology, I might not be able to give an exhaustive list. I might just be able to talk off the top of my head about like what.
Yeah, for sure. Like any that you have experience in or
Yeah,
that you know like more of, I guess.
yeah, or even like my friends or other coworkers from school. Thinking about, well, I know definitely, as I mentioned, cancer epidemiology. Like, so within the field of epidemiology, I should say, of course, epidemiology is really focused on understanding diseases at a population level and studying health at a population level. And so there are a host of specializations or areas of focus that students or early or professionals can really involve themselves in kind of thinking about. And so really it is sometimes, I think, very overwhelming to think of the breadth of which of areas of expertise or specialization that you can involve yourself with. But some that come to mind off the top of my head are, of course, like cancer epidemiology. And as you guys know, like infectious disease epidemiology is really something that's a very hot topic right now. Global health is another great is another area of specialization that I know that a lot of my classmates and myself have really tried to learn about as students, thinking a little bit more. So and again, there's also chronic disease epidemiology that looks into not the diseases that are not of an infectious nature, so that they might look at like diabetes or other chronic conditions that affect populations. And I know that's also a very a budding area of research as well, that I've seen a lot of colleagues really involve themselves in. And so those are just some examples, because I do feel like I might just butcher it into try to giving you an exhaustive list. But it's really like sometimes I think like sky's the limit. I know a colleague of mine is also looking into the epidemiology of mental health, and she's very studying mental health at a population level. And so I there's just an abundance of areas that you can get involved in as a professional in that field.
So I think we've been talking a lot about like research and epidemiology. So we were just wondering, are there any other types of jobs that you can get if you decide to study this?
Right. So, that's a very good question, because I have been talking so much about research, but epidemiologists are not just restricted to the field of research. Although research their ability to contribute to research and, of course, produce data within a research context to drive different interventions and to drive the decision making behind public health processes or the like, I think is really important. So I think that epidemiologists will always kind of be involved in research to some degree, but that doesn't necessarily mean that you work in a hospital or work in a lab environment. You can work in other environments. So I know that a lot of epidemiologists might work in government related jobs at a provincial level, at a federal level. So that might involve working at the Public Health Agency of Canada or working at Public Health Ontario. I know that that's a really popular, or those are really also very attractive areas of employment for epidemiology grads. Like Toronto Public Health, like those government, and so the provincial, municipal, and federal level, getting involved in government there. There's also, epidemiologists do work in the field as well. And so so those are field epidemiologists. And in Canada, you can participate in a program called the Canadian Field Epidemiology Program, where it trains you to kind of, I guess, you're in a more you're doing epidemiology in like an applied context. I don't know as much about that program off the top of my head. I know I've looked into it before, and definitely if someone watching this is interested in a more like hands-on applied version of epidemiology, definitely Google Canadian Field Epidemiology Program. And so I believe the program is meant to train epidemiologists to kind of be in the field and be like in an applied context. And I think that what that might involve, again, like I'm not I actually don't remember too much about the program off the top of my head, but what that might involve would be kind of going to an area with an outbreak and performing like an assessment of kind of how of like what the cause of that outbreak might be, which is a bit like a really like big part of what epidemiologists do if you're interested in infectious disease epidemiology. And so you're kind of working in the field, you're working with people, and you're applying your knowledge in that respect. I know another way to apply knowledge as an epidemiologist that I've seen happen with friends of mine from the program have been being infectious disease practitioners and working in a hospital, and again, like investigating outbreaks. Because another way I've heard epidemiologists being described are as disease detectives, so to speak. And so like this is another like really exciting aspect of the field is really being able to look at an outbreak and kind of that was part of our education at my school, was really being able to look at an outbreak and kind of look at the incidence of diseases over time and be able to say like what kind of disease is this modeling, and be able to kind of make recommendations based on your knowledge as an epidemiologist and the data that's presented. So that's also another way that epidemiologists work within an applied context. It may be within the field, within like an applied context, such as within a community, and or it could be at a hospital level, in fact, investigating an outbreak. And sometimes also epidemiologists work within communities as well, both in Canada and overseas. I know that for people who are more interested in the in global health applications of epidemiology and kind of lending their expertise to serving underserved communities, like Doctors Without Borders is an organization that takes on epidemiologists who perform those roles in communities that require those types of analyses and interventions. So that could also be another exciting way to apply epidemiology in that context.
Yeah, for sure. Well, we actually had a lot of questions written down, but I think in your answers you've covered basically all of them.
Okay.
So I guess to wrap up, we have one last question. What is one piece of advice you would have given your younger self when you were just starting out, like pursuing studies of epidemiology? Or I guess if that's sort of something you can't think of, like, is there anything you'd want to tell to anyone interested in pursuing this field?
I think if I could go back in time and really think about myself just starting out, even like maybe if I think about, I guess I tend to think about myself at where I was in my career when I was in high school, where you guys are. And I guess though at that time I didn't really know about epidemiology and getting into that field. But even at that stage in high school, I wish I just told myself to be more open and to not be so hard on myself, because I think that students at an early stage in their career, they kind of have a very specific idea of what a healthcare career looks like. And that I think really kind of cuts you off from exploring what you really are interested in and branching out and exploring kind of every aspect of what you like as a person and what you're really interested in. And so I think that at an early stage of your career in grade 11, 12 and first year university, I think that focus can be very narrow for students who are exposed to only a handful of healthcare professions, really, because at that stage I myself had only really been exposed to like doctors, nurses, dentists, and kind of thinking about healthcare in that respect. But I didn't know anything about research. I didn't know anything about informatics and data and how that really drives healthcare at a macro level. And so I would tell myself to really be open to those experiences and not try to force yourself to conform to what you think might a healthcare professional might look like, or a job in healthcare might look like. Because, and also to kind of pay attention to how the world is changing. And I think that COVID's really exposed us to that, and thinking about the way that we get information and how information and technology plays such a huge role in the accessibility of healthcare and in how people consume information about healthcare. So I would also tell myself to just kind of look around and see like where the world is going, and what the areas of need really are, because I think that that's a really important thing to think about. And so it's important to just not pigeonhole yourself, or not to kind of say that have one idea of what healthcare is. Really just I would tell myself to really enjoy it, enjoy the process, enjoy exploring, enjoy the relationships that you make with your classmates, with friends, with people that you meet. Because I think, and kind of the voice of experience speaking here, I think the people that I have met along the way, from first year, from high school and beyond, they have like been such huge supports to me. And I would say never discount those relationships, because that becomes so important. Those people become your supports, they become your mentors, they become the individuals that you lean on for guidance and for to inform those decisions of what steps that you make. And you kind of look back and you think, wow, like those were really the good old days of when I had my classmates, when I was with my teachers. I had amazing teachers in high school that really inspired and encouraged my interest in science and healthcare. And so my biggest piece of advice, I think, would just be to focus on, I don't want to say focus, but just enjoy every step. Enjoy every step. Like talking to both of you, I'm so excited for you of where you are in your careers and in thinking about what the next step will be. I think when I was at that stage, I was more worried about, will I make the right choice? And will I make the right choice? Will I go to the right school? Will I be in the right program and choose the right career? And that's all very important. And I think it is important to put in the work and do the best you can with the time and the resources that you're given. I don't discount that at all, but really I would definitely say just enjoy it. And I'm sure everybody says this to you, that these years don't come back, and it doesn't seem like, sometimes you're in it and it's like, it's not enjoyable at all. But I think that to really just take a step back and appreciate all that you're doing to get yourself to the next stage, and say, be proud of yourselves and enjoy what you like, enjoy every experience at every step of the way. That's my advice.
Let's do a quick recap. Here are some tips for high school and undergraduate students who are interested in epidemiology and public health. Step 1. As a high school student, you can explore the Specialist High Skills Major program in areas like health and wellness. Step 2. As a first-year undergraduate student, look for opportunities advertised on your school's website or emails, and frequently check with student services. Step 3. Don't be afraid to contact upper-year students and professors whose work interests you. Many professors will be impressed by your initiative and passion for the field, and you may land a great research opportunity. Step 4. Some universities may offer courses for first and second year students to conduct academic research, so keep an eye out for these. Step 5. Look for research internships at Toronto hospitals like SickKids and St. Michael's Hospital.